Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Hood, and I'm here to present a mine reclamation proposal for the abandoned Bellevue Valley Road mine. So the location of this mine is just outside of Hayden, Ontario. It's currently used as an unofficial shooting range by inhabitants of Sault Ste. Marie and Hayden. Information on the mine is available on the AMIS database, which we can see in the top right corner of the screen, with access to the road from the Bellevue Valley Road, which comes off of Highway 522. So let's go over quickly the current ecological degradation of the mine. Right now, as the mine has been used as a shooting range for the past 10 years, the area is saturated with lead shot from small arms fire. It is also littered with targets which are made of plastic, metal, glass, and electronic waste. The area is devoid of much of the native wildlife and has very little biodiversity. Most of the plants that exist in the area are just chicory and grass. Let's quickly go over why we should restore this area. There's a few reasons. They could be separated into aesthetics, eco-services, and naturalism. Many people believe that there is a natural beauty to nature that is best observed undisturbed. There's also, many believe it to be a moral imperative to keep nature at its in its natural state, in its pre-disturbed state, as that's the best state for it to be in before humans came and disrupted it. There's many eco-services that this area in specific provides. The surrounding area has been used by many for hunting and fishing, and there is cultural significance of the natural land to the people who live nearby. The health of the ecosystem is also important for the surrounding area. It's useful as a place for feeding for animals as well as for drinking. There's a small stream, and allowing the area to be restored would increase local biodiversity, which would increase the overall health of the ecosystem, not just in the immediate area, but the surrounding area as well. Let's go over some quick restoration goals. From the Aggregate Resources Act of 1990, Ministry of Natural Resources, they state the restoration should take place so that they can treat the land from which aggregate, specifically with the mine, to treat the land with aggregate has been evacuated, so that the use or condition of the land is A, restored to its former use and condition, or B, is changed to another use or condition that is or will be compatible with the use of adjacent land. We have three other goals which we can keep in mind, which would be overarching goals. They're to create a minimal public health and safety risk on the area, to minimize environmental risk in the mine restoration, and to produce value for the landowner. Let's form these more abstract goals into something a little bit more quantitative. There's four goals we can strive to reach. We can cease use as an illegal range. Right now, the range is not, the mine is not certified as a shooting range, and so since it is private land and the people who shoot there do not have permission, it is considered an illegal range. Neighbors have complained of noise pollution from the constant gunfire, and because there's no regulation, there is a danger for misuse of firearms. There's also another quantitative goal would be surface cleanup. There is currently a lot of litter, as mentioned earlier, and so complete removal of plastic, glass, and litter would be a good start. Wildlife introduction is another goal to be reached. Right now, it is very, very rare to find any sort of wildlife, ranging from birds to deer, anything that would not naturally use the land before it was turned into a mine no longer exists in the locale. So the reintroduction of wildlife would be the quantitative goal there. And finally, the reduction of lead. A actual number that we can strive to reach would be less than 600 parts per million, as this is the level that's recommended for soil so that it will not impact too heavily, or it will not reach lethal doses for humans who drink water that has percolated through the soil. We can separate these goals into short-term and long-term. The short-term goals would be the removal of surface pollutants, removal of danger to the public from constant firearms use, noise pollution, as well as the encouragement of a natural reintroduction of local flora. In the more long term, the goals we can have are to remove danger posed by lead in soil. That's something that doesn't happen overnight, but we can work on in the long term, as well as promote the use of land by local wildlife in obviously in a more permanent style. Moving on, we have lots of different options for restoration, and I will sort them into categories that we can use into 3 different plans. But the individual pieces of the restoration plans are the extraction of the top 6 inches of topsoil and sand. It's a sandy, silty area, and so the removal of the top 6 inches is where the majority of the lead from the small arms fire, which is 12 gauge shotguns, 10 gauge shotguns, 22s, 223 small arms that are not penetrating any more than 6 inches into the soil. Phyto extraction with poplar trees. This is, well, I'll speak more on the issue later. The introduction of a physical barrier fencing to stop access from the road, to reduce the use of the mine for an illegal shooting range. Another option would be soil liming, which would increase the pH of the soil and reduce the toxicity of lead ions, and I'll go into that in more detail in the future slides. The dredging of a section of the stream that runs through the restoration site to remove some of the contaminated soil or substrate, and implement, this is another option, would be to implement a certified range in the area if the owner would like to keep the area as a place for firearm usage. However, it would have stricter regulations and proper backstops. The long-term monitoring of the soil contaminations, the stream water quality, and the wildlife in the area. This can be accomplished with chemical monitoring and with trail cams. And finally, an introduction of a seed bank. When the mine was first dug, it removed many of the seed banks that naturally occurred in the area, and so the introduction of new seeds and the reintroduction of local flora would be an important option. So I said there was 3 options, but there is a 4th. There's always the option of doing nothing. Obviously, this is the least expensive option of them all, and it does allow for it to be relatively unintrusive in that the landowner will not be bringing in machinery or disturbing anything that does exist on the land currently. Of course, it does leave the danger of the lead poisoning that's currently in the soil for local fauna, especially avian species that would pick up the small beads thinking that's food. There is a danger of a lawsuit from firearm mishap on private land. This one is maybe often overlooked, but it is important to note that aside from the ecology of it, there is a social concern that someone could hurt themselves from a inappropriate firearm use on the land. There's noise pollution that would not go away. It might actually increase as people become more aware of the area and use it for more shooting. That would annoy the local population. There is a damage to the local ecology through the lead, through the noise pollution and everything that's been stated beforehand, as well as a threat to lead poisoning in local water. Glass and plastic shards also pose a threat to wildlife. So option number 1 would be a full restoration. This would require a large sum of money. It would require chemical experts for soil testing, qualified construction crews, permits that would have to go through the city and for Ontario for removing soil and disrupting the stream that runs through the site, as well as a forestry scientist to help manage tree selection and the planting. The quick steps here would be first, litter removal. So that's just basically picking up all the shotgun shells and large garbage and sweeping up any glass and metal shards that would be on the ground. Secondly, it would be soil removal. So that would be the most expensive part of the operation, and it would use dump trucks and excavators to remove the top 6 inches of the sandy soil. After that, the soil could be, it is relatively deep in the area, but it is sandy soil, and so it is ideal for poplars, which are also known for the phyto extraction of lead. These trees have the known ability of absorbing heavy metals into their wood, and so it is a natural solution to removing the lead that may be left over from what was missed in the top 6 inches of soil. It also provides an economic option, as the poplar can be harvested at a later date after 20-25 years when the tree has reached maturity. Finally, they can dredge the shallow stream after the trees have been planted. and remove any substrate that is contaminated with lead. And after all of that is done, they can we can implement a long-term monitoring program, which includes the installation of trail cams to monitor wildlife, as well as the introduction of annual soil testing and stream testing to maintain that the lead is not returning to the surface. The second option is a little bit cheaper. It requires just unskilled laborers for the initial cleanup and construction crew to install fencing and signage. It would start with introducing a barrier along the road to deter entrance to the illegal range, and signage to deter trespassing. Once that has been set up, you can move in and again sweep and rake the area to remove any glass, metal, and plastic. And actually, this is where the science comes in, and you actually lime the area. So by liming the area, it increases the pH to just above 7. And at this slightly basic pH, we find the less toxic species of lead, which would be just solid lead or PBO, to be more common as the dominant species, and these are less toxic when consumed by humans and animals, just based on the pH of the soil and the electro potential. Finally, the seeding can take place for the introduction of seeds and local shrubs from local donor areas. So we can take shrubs from just outside of the area and plant them within the soil, and introduce seeds that would come from local species to improve succession rates. Get primary succession going, so secondary and tertiary can move in afterwards. Finally, we can once all this is done, we can again implement long-term monitoring of the solutions to catalog what plant species have moved in succession, and then trail cams, obviously, to monitor wildlife in the area. Our third and final option is it's a little bit different. It relies on it requires construction crews to build a stand and backstop, and permits to allow official operation of an actual range. So if the private owner would like to keep the land for firearm usage as a firing range, they can implement the first step, which is just sweeping the area and cleaning all the dangers, the hazards of glass, metal, and plastic shards that are on the ground, and then to construct an actual certified shooting range. So they have to get permits for this, but they would have to build a proper backstop, as well as facilities for the people to safely shoot behind. But it is possible to do all this, and it would take about a year to construct the actual buildings and the equipment. Once it has been constructed, they can the owner can ensure that the area is kept clean with a backstop, as this will all be well regulated, and they can actually receive a small income from membership fees and the sale of paraphernalia like shooting clays, guns, whatever they want they sell at the site. I'll go quickly over the timelines and the rates of success that we're likely to have with these three options before we wrap up. For the first option, which was just the full restoration, it would likely take a week just to remove the litter that's scattered around the area. I want to stress how extensive the litter is. There is a variety of everything from shotgun shells to dead computers that absolutely litter the soil for about a half square kilometer of area. The soil removal would take about 3 to 12 weeks after that, as depending on how long the permits take and how quick the construction crews can be to remove the soil. After this, it would take about 4 weeks to plant the area with trees that are spaced out appropriately for harvest at a later date, and then maybe 20 years for them to reach maturity so that they can be harvested and then sold at market value. The dredging of the stream would only take a week. It's not a very wide stream. At its widest, it's about 50 centimeters, and it fluctuates heavily between the seasons. Long-term monitoring of the project will be about 2 years plus, but it is very low. It does not take a lot of effort to keep the long-term monitoring in this situation. Second option for the barrier installation takes about a week. Sorry, I should mention that the rate of success is likely to be a lot more successful for the first option of removing the lead and reaching our ecological goals. It is the most expensive option though. The second option of the barrier installation Again, just putting a fence takes a week. You don't need highly skilled construction crews, but a local construction company will do. Litter removal can be done with unskilled laborers. Again, raking only takes a week. Soil liming, the scattering of the soil, it would take about 3 months before you can actually plant things afterwards. You just want to make sure that the pH is settled and everything is exactly how you want before you start seeding, which again would only take a week. It doesn't take very long to plant saplings or brushes and shrubs and scatter seeds. Long-term monitoring would be 6 months plus. It's very similar to the long-term monitoring before of the option beforehand. Relatively low effort to keep it moving, but it would be actually even less because you don't have to do an annual upkeep of the soil chemistry and water chemistry. The third option of litter removal would take about a week. Range construction about a year, 3 months to a year, depends on how permits and how quickly the construction company move. And after that, it can go on indefinitely as long as the business model is in place for the operation. I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope that you can take this unbiased information into your consideration and make the best decision for you and your land.